Caribbean open world we've created, it's a fresh world. It's the most unique world we've ever built. We're traditionally used to building cities. So we still have the cities in this game, but now we have this massive Caribbean open world with a lot of naval. So it was a big challenge for us to make sure that the world was constantly filled with content, that you're always finding something, activities, locations, events. And as an example of some of the stuff in the demo you saw, we passed by a whale. Harpooning is an activity that you can do in the naval. And harpooning is tied to the progression system of Edward. We do look internally to our games that we ship, and we see how successful they are. So, for example, Far Cry 3, it was a very successful game. The progression system was really cool in that game. It was simple to understand, but really fun to engage. So we took a page from their book, and we have a fairly similar system where you use the hunting and harpooning to upgrade Edward. So that's one activity you find in the naval. We have over 50 locations that are filled with treasures and contents and things to discover. And beyond that, we have these things called playas and sandbanks. And these are small, undiscovered little beaches and areas. And we have over 75 of those. So there's a lot to find in the world. There's systemic events like storms. Storms are very dangerous. You have to deal with them. You have to protect your crew during a storm. Make sure you navigate properly. There's dangers like water spouts and lightning bolts that you have to watch out for. So this is some of the content that you can see in the naval world. AC3 for us was a real tease for naval combat. It was optional. It was the first time people had seen something like this. So it was it had the credibility of AC. It was really big and beautiful, but also fun. But for us, it was a tease. We needed to go deeper. We needed to make sure that there was a lot more progression in it. So some of the changes we've made is the new aiming for the round shot. So your basic cannons, now you have a trajectory aiming. So you have control over the height and the distance. And this is important because in the open world, if you're dealing with waves, you're in a big storm, you need that extra control. We have a bunch of new weapons. For example, the heavy shot. The heavy shot is kind of like a shotgun for the water. You have to get in close. It's very deadly. Up close does a lot of damage, but at a distance it's weak. So this is a weapon that you have to be careful who you use it on, because there's enemies that are also very unique. We have a lot of new enemy types. For example, one is the Charger. The Charger is a ship that builds up a lot of speed, and he tries to ram you. So with him, it's a bit dangerous to try to use the heavy shot because you don't want to be close to him. He's weak at a distance, but he's trying to get close to you. For him, I would recommend something like the Mortar. The Mortar is a very long-range weapon, and so you have to use it's in the spyglass. You have to use your spyglass to aim the mortar and have it shoot. So we've really delved deep into the different weapons and the different AI that you can find on Jackdaw itself. All of this stuff is upgradable. The Jackdaw is customizable. It's the second main character of the game. We've put a lot of effort on it to make you really fall in love with it and to feel that you're not just playing Edward, you're also playing the Jackdaw. The crew is very important. You need them for boarding. You need them for naval combat. If you don't have enough crew to board a ship, you're going to fail the boarding. So they have a lot of value. You can hire crew in taverns. You can find them in islands like shipwrecked sailors. You can find them and recruit them into your crew. You can even save them from hostile situations. So there's a lot of interplay between the crew and Edward. You can find collectible songs that you can get them to sing on your voyages. The early 18th century, this was a time period when there was a war. At some point, there was a peace treaty between the factions, France and the British and the Spanish. And this is how the Golden Age of Piracy really started. Was you have a bunch of sailors that are now in the West Indies, the Caribbean, that don't have a job anymore, and they don't have much money. And so piracy began here. So that's how the story kicks off. But as time progresses, The British and the Spanish begin to fight each other again. And so in the game, they are hostile towards each other. This is how the gameplay is impacted. For the most part, when they're separate, they're fine. When the ships cross each other and it's systemic, they will go into battle. As a player, you can take advantage of this moment. You know, Adewale, your first mate, if he sees it at a distance, he'll let you know. He'll point at it and say, "Captain, let's take advantage of this." And you can come in and do as you wish. You can watch them fight it out, weaken each other off and jump in. You can jump into the middle of the fight, help one side or help the other, as you wish. It's completely open to the player. And of course, in the story, I won't go into it too much, but it is a pirate story, so there's a lot of interplay between the different factions and Edward. And of course, how the Assassins and Templars have their hands in it.
Hand turns full circle. So watch is your hand.
We have tons of new content. The locations that we've built are some of the most diverse locations we've ever built. So for example, we showed off a little bit about the fort. The fort is a location that you need to take down in the naval, but then infiltrate the fort once the defenses are down. Infiltrate it and find the commander or the captain and take him out. We have other locations like plantations. Plantations, it's a completely new location where you need to find the plantation owner. He has a key that you need to find. Once you find his key, you can get access to all his resources and cargo. But this location is really stealth-driven environment. You can try to go in guns blazing if you want. It's up to the player, but it'll be very difficult. So this is an environment that really teases stealth, and there's a lot of ingredients in it that also push us. For example, we have a new bell system that attracts new guards and so on. Beyond this, we've made sure that guards are a bit tougher to fight against. So we have the gunner type. The gunners are very deadly. You don't want to be in combat with them or open combat with them. You want to either take them out from behind or avoid them at all costs. To supplement this, we've given Edward a bunch of new weapons. So for example, you saw in the demo he has 4 guns. This is something that you can upgrade. We have a free aim system with the guns. So at a distance, you can try to go for that headshot. If you don't want to bring attention to yourself with a loud bang, you can use the blowpipe. The blowpipe gives you the ability to at a distance give a quiet shot that either puts the enemy to sleep for some amount of time or makes them go berserk. And at that point, they'll attack anybody they see, you, animals, their own friends. So we've given the player a lot of tools to be able to play in stealth and have fun with the AI. The Brotherhood is something we've taken out. It didn't quite fit in the setting or with Edward. Edward is a pirate at the beginning of the game. He's a full-fledged pirate. And even as he begins his assassin training, he's not sure if this is what he wants to do. He's not sure if it's in line with his personal goals. So the Brotherhood didn't make too much sense for us. But this is where the crew, your sailors, your pirate crew, comes into play. So it's not the same mechanics as before. It's very different mechanics, but it was something that we've decided to let go because it didn't quite make sense for us, and we actually felt that it made you almost too powerful. So we've decided to put the effort on the crew of the Jackdaw.
Got by kneeling at the back of the church, feeling water on your brow with its healing. It hurts at first, a sharpish pain that returns as a thought that the needle in your skin won't bring you closer to God.
I will say not 100%. Cuba's massive, and Jamaica's massive as well. But we have a lot of content, and you have pockets. For example, Cuba, there's a lot of pockets that are fully explorable and are mini open worlds. Havana being a major city, and Havana's really big. But all over Cuba, there's pockets. You can't go into too far to the interior of Cuba. But then again, in Jamaica with Kingston, you can go into the outlands of Kingston. So we've opened it up quite a bit. You can even go to Port Royal. So the breadth of the content, it's really huge. There's a lot in it. It's not completely 100% explorable in terms of every part of the island, but a good portion of it is. We open up the full world about an hour into the game. So at first we need to just introduce you to it. We don't want to overwhelm the player too much. So we get you started into the game world. But very quickly, once we teach the basic concepts of the game, we open up the full world and you're free to explore it as you can. The way we taper the content is by actually putting tough enemies in front of this content. So yes, you can play in the full world. You can try to sneak in to any location you want, but a lot of them will have, you know, a giant man of war sitting right in front. You know, you might have a cave that has this huge man of war with 100 cannons sitting protecting the cave entrance. So you'll have to upgrade the jackdaw to be able to access that cave and take out the man of war that's standing in front of it. So we've taken a new we have a new approach about like blocking content, if you will, but it's more to the player to try. How far do you want to explore into this world? How far do you want to upgrade the jackdaw to access all this new content?
In the wit of a fool to wonder why I don't try to build a wall around you. And I watch as your head turns full circle.
Yes, we call those LGS maps, linear game sequence. So yes, we have a few of those. Some of them that don't exist in the Caribbean and other parts of the world. So yes, you'll see a couple of these. So the pure raw resources, there's a few of them. A bunch of them are needed to upgrade. So you do have to plunder to gain resources, to increase the number of cannons you carry, upgrade the weapons, increase your hulls. Excuse me. So they're very tied to the upgrading of the jackdaw. Some resources are purely for economy purposes. So these are things that you want to figure out where to best sell sugar. So in the world, there's a fluctuation of prices, and so for the people who love the economy system of this type of world, there is something for you there. You don't have to delve too deep into it if you're not into that. But there are some resources that are for the economy. Some resources are for upgrading. The fleet, Kenway's fleet. So when you plunder a ship, you can send that ship to your fleet. The fleet is another access point that you can jump into the economy system with. So the fleet is something you can send outside of the Caribbean world to plunder and pirate for you across the world. And there is more economy to play with. And this is something that you can play on the console, but you can also play on your companion app. So the companion app delves deep into the Kenway's fleet. So this is something you can play while you're on the bus. If you have an interest in the economy system, if you want to gain more resources and you have time on the bus, you can do it with the companion app. There is management of the fleet, but then you can, with the companion itself, you can dive deeper into the individual missions. So you can actually follow the ships and do the naval combat inside the companion app. Overall, in the whole game, we've put a lot of effort to advertise features of the game, make sure content is presented really well to the player, really simply. You know, when we were on Mysterious, you saw a little panel come up that tells you what exists on this island. This was a philosophy that we have across the board for all our presentation, interface presentation. That, stuff is easy to understand, simple to use. The game is not about navigating menus. It's the menu part is there as an interface for you to do what you want. So we've simplified a lot of stuff.
You appear even tempered though you look so deceiving. The sparks are always fire cause you drink for relief. With the heart of a child and the wit of a fool.
We have a huge world, tons of content in it. But for sure we don't want players to be bogged down by constantly, if you just want to go to town, that you have to drive to that town. So the way it works is if you've been to a place, you can always fast travel there. When you synchronize with a reach high point, you can teleport to that reach high point. Other comfort features include if you want to get back to your jackdaw very quickly, you can always run into the water and swim up to the ship and climb if you wish. But there's rowboats around in the world that you can use to get a quick travel back to the jackdaw. Again, this was an overall philosophy. We don't want people to spend time doing something they don't want to do. If you just want to get into the action, we make it as fluid as possible for you to do this. Whether it's fast travel, whether it's presenting you with information that's very accessible. That information panel we mentioned, it's actually very important in the game. We have a button for it. If you just want it to pop up to see what you need to do here, it's there. All your objectives are made very clear for you. We always try to make it fluid and comfortable for players.
It's your head turns full circle.
With AC3, Desmond's story ended. So in our present day, we took this opportunity to say, let's bring players closer into the narrative. So the present day hero is you. So you have been hired, early in the game, you've been hired by Abstergo Entertainment. They're a subdivision of Abstergo Industries. So they've hired you to do research on a man named Edward Kenway. And you don't know to what end. As far as you know, it's an entertainment company. They make games, they make movies, they do research for other media. And they're researching pirate life, and specifically this man named Edward. And so you start the game as a research analyst. The Animus technology has progressed. So AC3, the end of AC3 hinted at the technology moving forward. One of those movements forward is that anybody can use the Animus to enter someone else's ancestry. So in this case, we still deal with Desmond's ancestry. Edward being the grandfather of Connor, father of Hytham. So it's still it's still Desmond's bloodline. So you're jumping into it, and you're diving deep into someone else's ancestry.
Yeah, watch as your head turns full